I'm 15 weeks pregnant with our poly family's second baby, and here I am thinking of running away from the family that we've created. Married for 9 years, me and my husband have been doing the polyamory thing for 4 years now. This started when my husband confessed to having feelings for one of our mutual friends. He really sold me on the idea of a poly triad, and we started living together. My family disapproved and stopped visiting us. That hurt, but things were okay. I did struggle with some jealousy issues. Although I told my husband that I was open to dating someone new and bringing the new person into our fold, in reality, I wasn't ready at all. The guys I liked quickly distanced themselves romantically as soon they heard that I was a married female in a non-monogamous relationship. It was hard. As for the guys who were okay with my situation and pursued me, I wasn't attracted to them. Things changed in 2017 when my husband's girlfriend became pregnant with my husband's first child. I love the kid, I really do. She calls me maman and loves me a lot. Right around the same time my company promoted me. I went from working 4 hours a day to essentially living 4 months out of my state. I immersed myself in my work, and in 2019 my husband talked about having one of our own to complete the family. Fast forward to June 2020, I find out I'm pregnant and we're having a boy. We had a big gender reveal and everything. The kiddo knows that she's getting a baby brother. I'm currently 15 weeks along, and 2 nights ago, my company offered me a permanent position in the new city. Because of COVID, they had to lay off many people, and they now need more people in leadership roles. From a career standpoint, it would be foolish of me if I let this opportunity go. But if I do that, it would break my family apart. Right now my husband and his girlfriend are working on the baby room, and I'm here sitting conflicted. I'm really tempted to take up the job offer and run away from the life that we've created. I'm also secretly contemplating an abortion. My friend thinks that I should take up the offer. He thinks I'm unhappy with my life and that a change would do me good. I would be working with him if I take up the offer. I have friends in that city, so I know that I wouldn't be alone. I'm really stressed out thinking about it. What should I do? Commentator asks. This whole situation stems from the fact that you became poly under duress by nature of your cheating husband. You don't become poly because you have someone else lined up already. All these people telling you to just work it out fail to see that you were coerced into this situation. I'm baffled why you let it go on so long, especially since you didn't have a kid together, but I suppose it is your visceral desire for stability. I would get an abortion and go create a life you actually enjoy, instead of this day-to-day, colorless life of acceptance you've tolerated for way too long. OP comments. This was blunt and maybe the honest response that I needed. My husband and his girlfriend swear that they didn't start a romantic relationship until I was fully in the loop of things. But to be really honest, I don't know. Maybe they did start out by cheating. But that ship has sailed and I accepted the situation. So looking back on that won't help my situation. But I do feel that I need a fresh start now. Away from the mundane life that I have. 15 weeks pregnant, I'm getting an abortion next week and moving on from my poly family. I made a post a few days ago about being conflicted with a new job offer and an existing pregnancy. Just thought I'd share it here first. Last night I accepted the job offer and I'm getting an abortion next week. My friend is helping me every step of the way. I'll be filing for divorce in a week or 2. I've had great years with my poly family and my husband, and now it's time for me to make the jump and dive into the unknown. Thanks to all the people who sent me supportive PMS and helped me make my decision. And yes, I did talk to a therapist via Zoom. That session helped me clear my head in a way that I hadn't felt before. And, no, I haven't talked to my husband. I will talk to him after I actually get the abortion procedure done. I'm really focused at this moment and don't want conflicting opinions to derail my journey. So I will talk to him after it's all done. Thank you. OP comment. I'm not poly. My husband became poly a couple of years into our marriage when he fell in love with a mutual friend, and I went along with it because I wanted to please my husband and I was afraid of our marriage breaking up. He was, and is, my only partner, and I was terrified of losing him. Clearly, that was a mistake, and it built a lot of resentment inside me over the years which I couldn't understand or justify to myself. I finally aborted my 15-week pregnancy and I'm ending my polyamorous marriage. I moved out this Wednesday. If you check my post history you would know what I'm talking about. Just an update for the people who reached out to me. I did get an abortion last week, on Friday. I finally told him this week, on Wednesday. I'd never seen him so broken. It broke my heart to see him cry, but I had to do it. His girlfriend hugged me, little kiddo hugged me and bid me goodbye. My husband refused to talk to me. I'm waiting for him to reach out. I'm giving him space right now. I'm at peace and I don't regret my decision. With this I'm bidding my poly lifestyle a final goodbye. Thanks to all the people here who supported me. I found out I was pregnant with my fourth child not long after divorcing my husband. I'm conflicted about whether I should keep this baby. This is long. I'm sorry, I've sort of written a novel here. I wanted to post this in a relationship advice group, but the subject matter isn't allowed. My ex-husband and I were married for 10 years, although the last 2 were spent in variations of separation. We've been divorced for roughly a year. We have 3 kids, 10, 8, 5, I'm pregnant with our 4th baby. I don't know if we'll actually be parents to 4 kids or not. I'm so conflicted. We are so conflicted. There was no abuse or cheating in our marriage, although he did sleep with somebody else during our separation. There are a variety of other reasons why we ultimately got divorced. After the initial feelings of failure and heartache, and there was an immense amount of heartache on my end despite being the one who filed for divorce, we were able to get along pretty well. It becomes platonic so quickly, and it's like when we remove the romantic and married relationship from the equation, things got so much better. We split time with our kids 50/50. That's really hard for me because being a mom is such a huge part of my identity that I still sometimes struggle to know what to do with myself during his time with the kids. Ultimately, I'm happy that he's a loving, involved father, and I'm glad that they do spend half their time with him, even if I still sometimes cry over not being with them all the time. We still do things together as a family sometimes. We sit together at our kids' activities, things like that. He has a girlfriend now. She seems nice. He met her not long after our divorce was finalized. It hurt. I cried way too much over it. He waited over 6 months to introduce her to our kids, which I was thankful for. My kids like her. Our youngest child was unexpectedly admitted to the hospital not long ago. He had surgery. In the grand scheme of things, it was a pretty minor surgery and he's absolutely fine now, but this is my baby and he had to spend multiple nights in the hospital, so this was a big deal for me. My ex-husband was there the entire time, being a great dad, being a supportive partner to me as I worried over every little thing. We spent all those nights in the hospital together and I remembered why I married him. He was always able to be the strong, level-headed rock for me. He was this safe person who I knew would take care of everything and protect me. When we were in the hospital, he told me that I'm the most important woman in his life. When our son was discharged, my ex-husband came back to my house. My baby was home safe, our other 2 children were excited to be home after staying with my husband's sister for several nights. We were all together at home like a family again. That night after our kids were in bed, we had sex. I hadn't been hoping for it or planning it. It was just like as soon as the kids were tucked away in their rooms, we were having this intensely passionate, needy, amazing sex that we shouldn't have been having. We went to sleep in my bed and at some point in the middle of the night we had sex again. The next morning we both decided our emotions with the whole situation with our son just got the better of us. We said we didn't regret sleeping together, but that's all it was, and we were just going to go back to our normal divorce lives. We wouldn't make it awkward, just move on. Then I found out I was pregnant. We didn't use a condom. I don't even have condoms in my house anymore. I'm not on birth control. I haven't been since we divorced. I haven't needed it since I haven't had the time or interest to start dating again. I really wanted to be single for a while. I know I was ovulating when we slept together, which was probably a contributing subconscious factor as to why it happened. My body sees him being a good dad to our kids and it wants another. My cycle is like clockwork and we've always conceived on the first try every time we've tried to get pregnant. Our first kid was not even a try, it was 2 weeks before your wedding you find out you're pregnant and spend your honeymoon with morning sickness surprise. So now I'm about 8 weeks pregnant. I've known for about a week. I just told him this past weekend. I didn't know if I would tell him at all. I realize now that I only told him in hopes that he'd tell me what to do and figure the situation out for me. Only he didn't. I know it makes no sense to have a baby with somebody I chose to divorce. I don't need a 4th child. Why can't I let go of this though? Update 1. I posted about a week ago. My ex-husband and I have been divorced for about a year. We have 3 kids, ranging from 10, 5 years old. We have gotten along great since the divorce, better than when we were married. It's almost like we're friends, can do things with our kids, and enjoy being around each other. About 2 months ago, our youngest unexpectedly ended up having surgery and spending several nights in the hospital. He's fine now. My ex-husband and I stayed together with our son the entire time he was in the hospital. When he was discharged, my ex-husband came back to my house, or former family home, at our son's request. He was just supposed to spend a few hours there. Help our son get settled, then go home. However, I guess all of the emotions and being together as a family in our former shared home got the better of us and we ended up having sex twice that night. Now I'm 9 weeks pregnant. I wasn't on birth control, was on it until after our divorce was finalized, but have been intentionally remaining single for a while and not involved with men in any way, so was giving my body a break from birth control. Initially we were undecided about what to do, but as of last weekend we made the decision together to have the baby. It feels sort of crazy to me. Definitely not a situation I ever imagined I'd find myself in. I already picture this baby looking just like our other kids. I guess that's why I struggled with the idea of not continuing with the pregnancy, which I know isn't really a valid reason to have a baby. This is probably the last baby I'll ever have. I'm 39, so even if I were to meet a man who I trusted enough to want to have a child with and a future with, I'll be well into my 40s by then. I plan to be very picky, but I'm not even at the point of wanting to find somebody new yet. We're not getting back together, for now. We get along great when we're not married and living in the same house. We feel it'd be irresponsible to all of our children to attempt to get back together right now because of this. Chances are higher that we'll be able to co-parent this baby successfully if we live separately. However, we are committed to working together to do what has to be done to take care of the baby when he or she gets here. Our kids are doing so great right now and they seem very happy and secure with the current setup of our lives and homes, so we want to stick with this for now. I don't know if I really understand what I'm getting myself into. Our other kids were all born into a marriage and a two-parent home. I know that sharing custody of a baby will be a lot different than the kids going back and forth between homes. I might be feeling too positive about it, but I think it could work out fine. The new baby will just see this as normal, right? Next thing to worry about will be having to explain this to everyone when we tell them. My family and friends will get over it, but I'm especially concerned with explaining it to our kids. I'm worried our oldest won't take the news well. She also knows what sex is and how babies are made. And for everyone concerned about his girlfriend, she's not his girlfriend anymore. Top-rated comment: these two are 100% getting back together within a year and then breaking up again in another. Update 2. Several people have asked me for an update on my situation. My ex-husband and I are having a baby. My other posts are on my profile. A recap is that we were married for 10 years, divorced for almost 1.5 years now, and have 3 kids together. We slept together twice during a stressful family time and I ended up pregnant. We've since admitted we are both still in love with each other, but have not actually declared that we're back together, mainly for the same of our kids. I last posted toward the end of January. I'm 28 weeks pregnant. We're having a little girl. As far as the pregnancy goes, it's been like a textbook pregnancy, and so I feel pretty good, just more tired than I ever remember being during pregnancy before. My husband and I continue to live separately and share custody of our kids. We each have them 50% of the time. They're all aware that we're having a baby and none of them seem to be deeply confused or emotionally damaged by their divorced parents having a baby together. We explained it in an age-appropriate way. Our oldest child was more grossed out that her parents had sex than anything else, since she now understands what sex is and how babies are made. We've been involved with her quite a bit and she's excited now. I even took her to one of my appointments. She's excited to have a baby sister and she understands that mom and dad love her and her siblings, that we love this new baby, and that we love each other as people and as parenting partners without actually being together as a married couple in one house. Meanwhile, my husband and I have started to attend couples counseling. We tried marriage counseling when we were separated before we divorced, but I think we were both already pretty mentally done, so counseling didn't do much for us then. I think we're getting way more out of it now because we're actually invested in it and putting in a lot of effort. Sometimes I feel great after a session, and at other times I feel not so great and am reminded of reasons why we divorced. Overall, I think it's a good thing for us no matter what happens with our relationship. We've been sleeping together for the last few months. We already agreed that we won't be seeing other people at this time. I wouldn't be saying this while pregnant anyway, and it's not as if I'll even have time with 3 kids and a newborn. We agreed that we will not open ourselves to being with other people while we are working on our relationship and before that conversation is had between us. We are carrying on just as we have been since our divorce, as far as our kids are concerned. Dad doesn't spend the night at our house. We do things together as a family sometimes, but we were doing that even before anything was rekindled between us. We're not acting as a couple when we're together as a family. We're friendly with each other, but there is no holding hands, kissing, etc. Our main concern is our kids. We refuse to say we're back together. If we officially get back together, we really want to feel certain that it'd be for the long term, that we're ready to commit to that. We don't want to give our kids whiplash or do anything to make them insecure about our family. We would like to get to that point, but we aren't there yet. I think if my husband had his way, we'd be there. He's ready to say he's there now. He'd love to move back home. But he understands and agrees with my reasoning. I'd love for him to move back home too, based only on emotions. We both have things to work on, separately and together. I want to be a better spouse this time around. I thought I was being a really great wife and I was on the surface. I also know that right now I feel so in love and am hopped on hormones and pregnancy happiness. I always feel super happy, super positive, and super horny during pregnancy, and I know I have to be careful with trusting anything I feel during this time because it's like I'm on a 24/7 natural high. I think the biggest issue right now is that he's far more, let's throw caution to the wind, even though he agrees with all of my reasoning, and I want to be way more careful. Final update. I've made a few posts about my husband getting pregnant after we divorced. We were married for 10 years and had 3 kids before getting divorced. We got along so much better after we divorced and we have been really good co-parents during this time, but we were functioning strictly as friendly co-parents. We slept together around 1 year after our divorce was finalized and conceived a 4th baby, which we ultimately decided to keep. Our 4th child, a sweet baby girl, was born at the end of May. She's so perfect and we both feel we made the right choice to bring her into the world. It was the smoothest, easiest birth I've had and I take that as a sign. I feel like I fell in love with him all over again during labor and delivery, and that's when I knew I was ready to make our relationship official and public to everyone, including our children. Contrary to all the assumptions, our kids really don't seem to be negatively affected or confused about the baby, and I don't think the newest baby is getting any less love or attention than our 3 kids born within our marriage have. This is normal to them now. They understand we're still a family and no matter what we'll always be a family whether mom and dad live together. We are still living separately and technically still maintaining the custody schedule we had in place for our oldest 3 kids. Although, the kids are with me every weekday right now since it's summer break and I'm on maternity leave. We have a different arrangement for the baby, but he does take her overnight a few nights a week. I got our family home in the divorce and he spends time here with all of us. He has spent some nights here at home to help with the baby, but he doesn't stay in my bedroom quite yet. He has not moved in, although he has tried and continues to suggest it. This is probably the biggest point of contention these days. To me, this feels like the best of both worlds. I love him and truly don't want to be with anyone else. I think I sort of function better and am happier also living in my own space that he just visits. I know it's not the norm and some might say this means I don't really love him as much as I think. I really believe I'm just one of those people who needs more independence and alone time, and maybe we never would have got divorced in the first place if this had been the arrangement from the beginning. Is it sort of selfish? Maybe. I don't know anyone else with this arrangement, but I know some people out there do this. For all intents and purposes, we are together in a relationship again. We've made it official and exclusive, as juvenile as that sounds. We had already made it official between ourselves, but we hadn't really announced it to family and friends or our kids. We are still in love with each other or back in love with each other and we are not seeing anyone else. Our kids have adjusted well. They've been seeing a therapist since we filed for divorce, so that has really helped us navigate some of this. Prior to the baby's birth we did not tell them that we were essentially in a relationship. Only so long you can keep that a secret from your kids. Even though they're young, they're perceptive. So we've recently explained to them that mommy and daddy love each other but we get along better living in separate homes and for now we think this is the best thing for our family. The only problem is that now they keep asking about when we will all live together again. I'm sure it's a little confusing to them, but I'm not sure how we could be handling it any better. We attempted marriage counseling when we separated, before divorce. It was not successful. I don't think either of us was 100% committed to it at the time. He really did not take it seriously back then, but I was more stubborn and resistant than I originally realized. We're in couples therapy now and it's like night and day compared to last time. I'm scared to live together again, so we aren't going to do that anytime soon. It's not that I don't trust him. I don't trust us as a couple. I refuse to put my kids through all of that again. So, getting remarried and moving in together isn't something in the plans right now. Maybe one day. I hope we can get to that point. I just don't want my kids to have to go through a divorce and splitting households yet again. I feel like they'd lose all trust in us then. OP on their living situation. I think it might be best for us to find a way to each have our own place next to each other or on the same property, instead of one actual house that we share. Other than not living together, we are together. It's no different than any other couple that's dating but doesn't live together. Well, it's a little different since we share kids and we were once married and I still usually refer to him as my husband, but not too different. We aren't keeping our relationship a secret anymore, so we aren't pretending to not be together. Everyone knows now. We spend a lot of time together. But yeah, he may eventually want more than I do, as in a relationship where we live together 24/7. At this point, the hubby's ex-GF was firmly in the rearview mirror and OP was still brushing it off as if it is no biggie, but I found one exchange that people may find interesting. OP, downvoted. Yes, he had a girlfriend at the time. It's in my post history and I'm not trying to hide it, but we have moved well beyond that now. Response. People are downvoting her comment because it is pretty black and white when it comes to cheating. Cheating hurts others and a lot of people value living in a world and having actions that don't result in hurting others. He was in a relationship and committed to his girlfriend when he decided that he had the right to sleep with his ex and not immediately tell her that he did it. She deserved better than to get trauma from someone who claimed to be committed to her, but was willing to step out on her. Cheating on someone does result in emotional trauma, which will affect how they will view love and relationships going forward. Personally, if he wasn't ready to be in a relationship with her, then he should have left her alone. I am tired of men in particular getting into relationships with women when they know they are not clearly over their ex-partner. It is a sign of selfishness and pure disregard of another human being's health. She was used as an emotional support and sex object by him, because no one that respects their partner would do something this cruel. So I'm not going to cheer on someone who could have just avoided this entire situation by not being in a relationship when he was clearly not ready to be in one. And hurt someone deeply. Edit, I want to add additional thought as well. Cheating is not only an emotional hurt but a sign that you give zero care about your partner's health. He was presumably still having sex with his ex-girlfriend after sleeping with no condoms with his ex-wife. With the rate of sexually transmitted diseases and infections increasing and the likelihood of the disease being antibiotic resistant, he told his ex that he had zero care for health and emotional well-being. She had the basic right to know that he slept with another person while still being intimate with her. Especially with no form of protection. Not calling the ex-wife dirty but with the risk of catching a disease that's incurable, or opens you up to higher risk of illness. Every person who is engaging in a sexual relationship deserves honesty. OP. All of this may be true. I'm not arguing anything you said. But I'd like to know what everyone on Reddit thinks we're supposed to do about it. We can't go back in time and undo what we did. Maybe Redditors feel that as an act of penance we should not be together, despite very much wanting to, since that's what we deserve for hurting her in the process. We should never be allowed to move on and have any happiness in our lives, together or separate, because we did something at one time that hurt somebody. Short of publicly flogging ourselves and maybe not allowing ourselves to ever be in a relationship with anyone ever again as a form of self-punishment, what are we supposed to do to satisfy the masses? Neither of us are proud of hurting somebody. My ex-girlfriend committed suicide. I am a firefighter and had to find her body. It's been a bit over 6 months since I posted that story and I want to give you a quick update on my life. I'm on mobile so I apologize if it makes it harder to read. TLDR, my ex-girlfriend got into an abusive relationship with a drug addict. She was dealing with depression for a while and killed herself. I am a firefighter in NJ, but go to school in NH. I received the call and conducted research to find her. I drove back down to help with the search. We found her body in the woods and she wrote me a suicide note. Where I left off was me upset about the situation and upset with the world, and most importantly, upset with myself. I was in a dark place for a while after that. I drank and shunned out everyone but my friends who were helping me. For a good amount of time I distanced myself from any girl who I met. The funeral wasn't long after and Jim didn't even show up. I'm not sure if he was invited, but it just shows the type of guy he is. I didn't feel comfortable with dating anyone, let alone even hooking up with them. It felt wrong and I was scared I would get close to someone and lose them again. The depression I felt was destructive. My chief reached out to me not long after because I never told him how I knew her. He asked me to see a therapist and that he can set up a visit at the firehouse. I was in NH so I told him I'll see my college counseling center and send him confirmation. I lied, I sent him a fake email and he believed me. I had this notion that I don't need help because I help people. After 3 months I was still depressed but I started to talk to girls again. I met this really nice girl named Sarah. We talked and even hooked up a couple times. After a month and a half she asked if we could start dating. I told her I couldn't. I told her my story and said I don't feel comfortable being close with anyone. She took it well and still wanted to talk, but I couldn't anymore. I felt as if she crossed a line in my mind and we couldn't go back. I didn't want to be close with anyone like that again. Fast forward another month, my friend Kelsey asked if I wanted to go to her sorority formal with one of her friends. I accepted and that's when I met Kristen. Kristen was perfect. She was really sweet and a great date. We ended up talking for a while, and this time I decided it was time to be proactive. I opened up to her about what happened to me and I told her I want to take it very slow. She completely understood. Instead of scaring her off, she helped me more than anyone has ever had. She convinced me that avoiding therapy is a bad move, and that there is no shame in seeking counseling. So I made an appointment and went. The therapist told me about a suicide prevention org on campus that I should join and tell my story. I joined them and they had suicide prevention events where people tell their stories to help others. I did my first story and Kristen and a bunch of my friends went to support me. It was one of the most touching moments of my life, standing up on that stage and seeing all those people. I continued doing these events and Kristen went to every single one. After 6 months I told her I'm ready to start dating, but to understand that I may be distant at first because I'm not used to this. She understood. We've been together for 8 months and she's amazing. She's the nicest and most supportive person I've ever met. Every time I'm in NJ I go to Lydia's house and support her mom. On Christmas I got a crew to come to her house and deliver presents to her mom's boyfriend's autistic son and her nephews. The way I was able to get relief for my pain was helping others. And if it wasn't for Kristen I wouldn't have the guidance to do it.
Change my view. Muting mics. During Biden-Trump debates may unintentionally disadvantage Biden by masking Trump's interruptions and disrupting Biden's responses. Biden and Trump are scheduled to debate. A lot of people are praising this as a win generally, but especially for Biden because it will stop Trump from interrupting Biden during his responses. I do not think that is right. In fact, I believe muting the microphones will benefit Trump much more than Biden. Muting someone's microphone when it is not their turn to respond does not stop interruptions. It only stops the audience from hearing it. Consider this. Biden is answering a question posed to him. Meanwhile, Trump is talking and rambling over Biden. If Biden gets distracted by this, as any reasonable person would, then this could very easily throw off Biden's response. However, to the wider audience who cannot hear Trump's interruptions, it will simply look like Biden is stammering, stuttering, or otherwise, too old. Especially in an era where sound bites and TikToks drive political perceptions, this could end up looking really bad for Biden. I realize Biden could also employ this kind of tactic, but it is simply not his debate style. Trump's debate style, on the other hand, is very suited for this kind of tactic. There could be ways to mitigate this though. Part of the debate rules could include a requirement that both candidates are visible at all times, like in a picture-in-picture format, or the two could be physically separated, like being televised in different rooms. However, I think that on its own, the rule to mute microphones for the person not responding will mostly benefit Trump in the debates. I would like to believe that the political debates are as fair as possible, so please change my view. Edit. This was fun. I appreciate all the discussions. Well, maybe not all of them, but most of them. I have given out a few deltas based on the discussions. Firstly, past debates have shown both candidates on screen for the vast majority of the time, even when only one candidate is responding to a debate prompt. While I still think the overall effect of a muted microphone could benefit Trump more, I recognize that this fact does mitigate some of the impact on Biden. Additionally, muted microphones would introduce a new debate format, and the interruptions would be more akin to the disruptions Biden experienced during the State of the Union. Although I still believe the overall impact favors Trump, seeing that Biden can react better under pressure when he is the only one with the microphone, provides evidence that the risk to Biden is not as significant as I originally thought. Furthermore, Trump's ego might not allow him to take advantage of the muted microphones, or it may even irritate him to the point that the audience sees Trump react negatively to being muted. While I am fairly sure Trump can hold himself together better than this scenario suggests, I concede it was not something I had considered originally. Ultimately, we will have to wait and see how the debates unfold to truly understand the impact of these new rules. Thank you everyone for the engaging discussions. Ultimately, we will just have to wait and see for ourselves. Thank you everyone. Moreover, Biden and Trump have agreed to debates on June 27th and September 10th. On Wednesday, Trump's campaign also called for 2 additional debates, one in July and another in August. The former president later posted on Truth Social that he would accept a Fox News debate on October 2nd. Biden's campaign did not confirm that the president would attend any debates other than those hosted by CNN and ABC News. First, why are you so sure that Trump rambling off on the side is going to throw off Biden? You treat it like it is a guarantee when nothing suggests Biden even has a tendency to be thrown off by side comments. Your entire premise is based on something that has never happened, and there is no evidence that it would happen. So no, I do not think this style of debate actually benefits Trump. Additionally, this strikes me as something easily anticipated and prepared for. Biden had little issue dealing with this behavior from Trump last time, and his team can easily prepare for this part of the debate prep this go-around. If anyone on Biden's team had thought this would be a hindrance to his performance, they would not have included it in his list of demands for the debate. Moreover, the interruption thing annoys me. Yes, Trump interrupted a lot more, but it is usually stated as if Trump was the only one interrupting. For example, the final debate saw Trump interrupting 34 times, and Biden interrupting 17 times, not counting a word or so thrown in that did not interrupt anything, but multiple words that were trying to talk over the other. That microphone shutoff is needed for both candidates. Furthermore, you have already received enough answers about your concern. I would like to highlight why your concern just does not hold enough weight. The debates are pure trash. We all know that the network airing the debate is not going to ask any real questions. Does it matter if they argue about a nonsensical question? What percentage of Americans are undecided but will vote? What percentage of those live in a state where their vote counts? 5%? Less? Who is this debate for? Having the internet ask questions and then selecting the questions based on upvotes would solve the first issue, kind of. However, they would be answering questions about aliens and reparations, so not exactly. The second issue would be a great question to ask, but we know that is not going to happen, and we know nothing is going to change. We also know politicians are the best of the best at talking without saying anything. We might as well have a debate with Joel Osteen and Ken Copeland. At least those two do not have dementia. In closing, this exercise is pointless. I am still going to watch though. I have to admit, all this press Trump has been getting for losing his marbles is fascinating. I am pretty sure it is just the Democrats' way of deflecting Biden's faculties, but it is worth a couple of hours to see if they are digressing similarly, or if it is a one-horse race. In addition, politics in the modern age is rarely about changing anyone's mind about the issues. Instead, it is about motivating them to come out and vote, or making rebuttals to reasons the other side uses to try to discourage votes. Basically, turnout is everything. Debates will of course only motivate the kind of people that watch debates, but that is non-trivial, and even a percent is huge. Responding to this, I hear what you are saying, and on principle, I would agree. However, I think we have enough evidence to prove they do not care about people coming out to vote. Somehow Reddit has forgotten exactly how the Bernie ordeal went. People on here seem to be convinced he did not have a chance to win. That is absolutely false. If the Democrats really wanted to win, they would have given him the nomination. This year, if either party wanted to win, they would have pushed other candidates. But they cannot, because they are all getting paid by big money to keep the status quo. They cannot let someone up there who is going to make sense, talk about facts and focus on the big issues. Everybody would vote for them. Every change they would make would cost big money, billions of dollars. The rich have a stranglehold on our economy, and they love it. Every major problem we have is big money's fault. Any correction would negatively impact the rich. They are not going to let that happen, and the politicians they pay are no different. The rich are paying both sides of the aisle. They do not care which candidate you vote for, they win either way. Vote, do not vote. Wear an Andrew Yang, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or Bernie t-shirt. Try and talk Mark Cuban into running, or Jon Stewart. It will not matter. They will never allow it to happen. At this point, striking and boycotting are the only tools we have that could work. My guess is they would come down on us like we are Gaza if we tried. Additionally, I was really with you up until you mentioned dementia, so I am just going to choose to ignore that, because we will not agree on that. I do agree though that the debates are not great. However, with the system we have now, and the level of engagement with eligible voters, sometimes having a debate to help drive voters' perception of you is important. It sucks, but it is all we have right now until there is a significant cultural shift in how eligible voters view political participation. A sort of AMA for each candidate is interesting, but it does not carry the same punch that a debate has. I imagine the AMA, for lack of a better descriptor, not that it would necessarily be on Reddit or something, would be similar to a virtual town hall style debate, which we have seen plenty of, and they do not carry the same level of weight that a debate can for the casual undecided voter. Furthermore, it would still be a debate. I am just saying, NBC could read the questions that citizens submit and always ask the questions with the most upvotes, instead of reading the questions their advertisers submit, which is exactly what we get now. I am not following you on the dementia thing. Have you not heard the news about Trump having issues? Are you unfamiliar with Biden's issues? Would Alzheimer's work better for you? Moreover, assuming Biden has not declined too much from age, which he does not seem to have, then he is still a highly trained public speaker and debater. I am nowhere near that level of training and do not find it difficult to tune someone out if I am talking, so I would find it difficult to assume most people as trained as Biden would struggle at all, especially for people who use tactics like the Trump team does. Morality, ethics and politics aside, the Trump team beautifully exploits human social weaknesses to such a ruthless extent. Flooding your mind with every form of gish gallop is a very common tactic for them, and you would be at a loss to lose a single drop of attention to it. An opponent continuing to quietly ramble during your turn needs to be ignored for similar reasons. If the audience cannot hear it anyway, you do not need to respond to it, and you should not waste time even processing the audio, as it is likely to only result in a loss of quality to your own arguments. Granted, this hinges on Biden just taking what would otherwise be an easy counter. However, Trump is a master troll and comedian, and probably one of the hardest people in human history to ignore. I cannot exactly vote for Trump since the Republicans are actively calling for my death, and I still have to give him major credit for his tactics and being able to play the apparent fool. For example, people laugh at him for so many bankruptcies, but he is probably thrilled with the overall results and, as far as I know, has not tried to argue against the perception of his incompetence there. Which, for as often as he broadcasts his insecurities, it should be very telling how he feels about the reality. So often even into his old age, as it has become less of a choice. Because of that, I think I partially agree with you. I doubt anyone else is willing to and could really pull off a significant off-mic distraction in the middle of a presidential debate as well as Trump could. Now I am much more interested in the debate just to watch Trump's tactics when he is muted and how Biden handles it. Lastly, nothing will stop interruptions. Biden already needs to prepare for that, so there is no change in that regard. Whether the microphone is off or on, Trump will try to interrupt and affect Biden. However, if the microphone is off, Trump cannot interrupt the audience from hearing Biden. Whether he stays calm or not, the audience will only hear him responding and will only see Trump trying to interrupt him. That is a benefit for Biden, as it makes it easier to ignore Trump, knowing that nothing he says is actually reaching the audience. What is more, the fact that Trump cannot be heard by the audience may bring another benefit. He may get triggered enough to do something foolish. Trying to come and talk to Biden's microphone, trying to scream loud enough to be heard. All of that will be a positive outcome for Biden. Highlight comments. To begin with, one sentence in the post states, especially in an era where sound bites and TikToks drive political perceptions, this could end up looking really bad for Biden. To this, one comment responds, I do not know. The "will you shut up man" is a classic. The original poster agrees, but they argue that addressing interruptions could potentially look weird to the audience. Additionally, addressing the interruption would take time away from Biden's response, and the fact that Biden would still have to address the interruption means he has to prepare for that, which takes away time to prepare for other issues. When asked, why would he need to address it? The original poster responds with a good question. They clarify that addressing the interruption could take any number of forms, such as actually responding to what Trump says, or even just taking a moment to pause to regather thoughts because the interruption threw off his train of thought. They assume that all interruptions get addressed in some way, meaning that when an interruption is created, the person being interrupted is no longer able to simply carry on with their response as if nothing happened. There is always a little bit of a distraction that manifests physically, such as a pause or even a facial reaction. A reply to this comment adds, there were a few things that came out of that one. Stand back and stand by too. Another reply states, no one who was not already completely pro-Biden was impressed by that. Moreover, part of Trump's way of debating includes getting a gotcha moment in those types of debates, and it will be harder for him to get those moments. A reply to this comment suggests, he is going to complain his free speech is being violated once they turn his microphone back on. Another reply adds, if he wants to spend his microphone time complaining, that is less time for him to actually address the questions asked. A third reply states, you have to stop conceiving of such people as capable of being rescued by outside forces. They are the only ones who can free themselves of the cult if they choose to. The only thing the rest of us can do is stop pretending cultists are serious people with a coherent political outlook and focus on moving less entrenched voters one step further towards sanity and caring about governing on policy concerns instead of just vice-signaling buzzwords. The original poster responds, that is, a reasonable take. But still, I am not so confident that this rebalances the equation, in that the negative impact on Biden is still greater than the negative impact on Trump. You might be able to convince me if we dive into this further. To answer this, someone explains that Trump's debate tactic is to confuse the other parties and push his own agenda while cutting the other candidates, to get good publicity and clips spread over the internet of how he owned the other side. They see the microphone mute as a disadvantage because he will not be able to cut Biden during his points, which will allow Biden to pass his points clearly. Biden is more like a debater who comes with prepared points, while Trump adds stuff along the way, which benefits from open microphones as they can be delivered in the moment. Additionally, another commenter questions, why are you so sure that Trump rambling off on the side is going to throw off Biden? You treat it like it is a guarantee when nothing suggests Biden even has a tendency to be thrown off by side comments. Your entire premise is based on something that has never happened, and there is no evidence that it would happen. So no, I do not think this style of debate actually benefits Trump. The original poster replies, I mean, these two have already had multiple debates together, with Biden getting thrown off by Trump's interruptions several times. A link on YouTube, I will update it in the comment below. There is my evidence. Do you have any evidence contrary to this? Someone responds, you are comparing being talked over by someone else with a live microphone, versus being thrown off by someone chirping on the sideline in your earshot. Those are apples and oranges. If you want a more apt comparison, then use Biden's response to being heckled at the State of the Union. That is what you are suggesting is going to throw Biden off his game, not Trump with a live microphone interrupting Biden. A reply to this states, because Biden is a stumbling fool, even when he has a teleprompter and a captive audience. He is going to be a mess whether there are interruptions or not. Pure comedy if he was not the leader of the free world. It is really elder abuse at this point. Furthermore, another comment observes, this strikes me as something easily anticipated and prepared for. Biden had little issue dealing with this behavior from Trump last time, and his team can easily prepare for this part of the debate prep this go-around. If anyone on Biden's team had thought this would be a hindrance to his performance, they would not have included it in his list of demands for the debate. A reply to this asserts, bro, you are talking about the same Biden team that has messed everything up in a row for 4 years straight. Yeah. I do not think they think things through as well as you would expect. Even in the 2020 election, Biden did not win as much as Trump lost. People were already hating everything about the guy and would choose anyone over him. That someone became Biden because his slowness and lack of awareness was a strength when put with Trump. He did not get pissed and react as much as Trump wished he did, because he did not understand what was going on to begin with. He was not prepared to win. He simply had insane weaknesses that paired well with Trump's style. All Trump has to do is make adjustments. Biden is going to do it exactly the same as in 2020 because that was just him being him, slow and forgetful. Also, Trump has shown he can learn very well from the past, while Biden has persistently ignored it in every policy, decision, and discussion. I mean, the guy is a vegetable. I do not know why people give him and his team so much credit. That is why many people always underestimate Trump simultaneously. Democrats have made the exact same mistakes that they did in 2016 with regard to Trump. They have fallen into his trap all the same. Their efforts have backfired just like they did in 2016 because they are the same exact efforts. So no, I do not think it is reasonable to have much expectation from Biden's team in this election or ever. The original poster responds, sure, but even if Biden is prepared for the interruptions, the microphone rule does not prevent the interruptions from happening. Biden could be just as prepared for interruptions with microphones muted or not. The point is that muting the microphones does not stop the interruptions. I hesitate to accept that, because they asked for it, it must be good. Political mistakes and miscalculations are made all the time. It certainly strengthens the case for Biden's team, but it is not sufficient to change my view on its own merits. Another person elaborates. The microphone rule does not prevent the interruptions from happening, means they stop the television audience from hearing said interruptions. If Biden is prepped, so said interruptions do not disrupt his flow, which his team could easily make part of the debate prep, then having the microphones muted provides only disadvantages to Trump. I hesitate to accept that, because they asked for it, it must be good, means fair. But given that the people supporting Biden are some of the top political strategists in the Democratic Party, it is fair to give them the benefit of the doubt on decisions. Unlike 2016, where Clinton did not correctly prepare for how Trump would behave, Trump is a known quantity now. The Biden camp knows how he will try to debate, and that is going to be part of any debate strategy they develop. We saw it in 2020. The most iconic moment was Biden's, "Will you shut up, man?" The Biden camp knows what to expect, and will undoubtedly have that be a major part of their planning. If I had to pick your or my judgment on how to best structure the debates versus theirs, I would pick theirs every time.
I was sick to my stomach when I discovered my wife's secret Google account, which contained hundreds of photos of my ex-girlfriend. I, 36, met my wife Bailey, 33, 9 years ago through mutual coworkers, and we hit it off immediately. I fell absolutely head over heels with this woman. She was everything I was looking for. I had gotten out of a toxic, dare I say abusive long-term relationship right before that with a woman Bailey had been acquainted with, but not friends with. I had her blocked on everything and had no contact with her since breaking up. We got married right after the tail end of the pandemic, bought our first house together, and started trying to conceive. That was difficult because Bailey has PCOS, but last year she finally gave birth to our first daughter. I'm having a blast being a dad. It's kind of a dream come true. I finally got my happy life with my perfect wife. My perfect wife. Until last Monday. My laptop's battery hit the bed, so I opened up Bailey's work tablet with an attached keyboard. You can set it up like a monitor, to check on some tax stuff. She wasn't home, it was just me and the baby, but we've never asked permission to use each other's devices. We've always been open like that. There's nothing for us to hide. That's what I thought. When I opened up the internet, I noticed she had the incognito tab open. Never in a million years did I expect to discover what I did. My wife has a secret Google account with a photo album saved called XX. So I clicked on it. Did I discover an affair? Nudes? Nope. In this Google album were over 300 photos, 348 actually, of my ex. The woman I was with right before I met Bailey. The woman who tormented me and made me feel worthless. The album said it was started back right around the time Bailey and I started dating, and was updated as recently as 2 weeks ago. The photos range from candid shots with family, to pictures at her work functions. There were even pictures from her yearbook. I don't know how Bailey could have found her high school yearbook photos. Photos from vacations, Idaho photos from work. Pictures of her in crowds, screenshots of videos and screen recordings of videos. Just her. The other people in the photos would be scribbled out, or the photo would be cropped and zoomed in just on my ex. There were other disturbing things I found too. There was another album with just zoomed up pictures of my ex's hair. Come to think of it, Bailey had recently started wearing her hair different and my ex had a very identifiable hair type. There was another album with screenshots of comments on social media. Of course I can't find them because I have her blocked. Like, Facebook groups she's in and public posts. And my ex is very low-key on social media. I can't imagine the lengths Bailey went to find them. My ex literally lives in another country now. There were also different links to the exact outfits she was wearing, like very specific blouses and trousers you'd have to really go looking for to find. A specific water bottle I remembered purchasing, and identical hiking boots and sandals. So basically, my partner of almost a decade has been a single white female. My girlfriend has secretly stalked her to the point of buying her exact clothes and changing her hair, and now I'm starting to realize Bailey's new interests over the years were just my ex's. Bailey has turned herself into my ex. Everything feels like a lie. Our love feels like a lie. The things we share feel like a lie. I threw up and had a panic attack. I looked at our daughter and felt betrayed. I haven't confronted her yet. I don't know if I want to. I want to run away with our daughter. I want to print out all her pictures, leave them on the table and disappear. I don't know what to do, I just want to throw up. Relevant comments. Shmai. Holy cow. That definitely is alarming. The best thing to do is address it now to see what'll change if she no longer has someone to replicate. The toxic side of me would slowly start mentioning things like, you know, you really do remind me of someone. And nonchalantly bite into an apple and walk away. I feel like what's worse is that she's subtly made these changes over time under my nose. So my ex has a specific career and Bailey didn't express interest in switching careers to the exact same thing until after I had mentioned what my ex did. Didn't notice at the time, but I remember telling her ex went to school for that. The hair was more recent, the outfits and objects, slowly over time. The interests, I'm not sure how much she's stolen personality-wise from my ex and what she actually likes. It's all incredibly exhausting and confusing. Miss_chapstick. I'm so sorry, this sounds like something out of creepypasta. I'm actually surprised with the amount of support I've gotten here in the last hour, haha. Believe it or not, there are no other red flags in our marriage. Now I don't know what else I've missed. Added. While I talked about my ex, most of the things I told my wife about were negative and painted her in not such a good light. My wife knows these things and knows they were traumatic. Of course, I've mentioned things like what she does for a living and things she used to do. I think everything else she found she got through intense cyberstalking through my ex's friends and family. The yearbook photos, I have no idea. Edit, removed specific info so I don't accidentally dox myself. Update. I'm pretty sure I accidentally got my original post removed just now because I tried to update it with a link to my update. Oops. Anyway, I'm the guy who found the Google Drive full of pictures of my ex. So, I was not expecting my original post to go viral on YouTube and TikTok, and have so many responses. Yikes. I am overwhelmed by the support. I am humbled by the number of people who have been through this experience, on both sides. I have an update, but it's probably not as exciting and as juicy as you want. It's not bad though. First, let me clear things up. If people think this post is fake because it doesn't make sense, or are trying to conceive timeline is short, or the way I worded things makes it look like a teenager or woman wrote it, continue to think that because it means I've successfully been vague enough and worded things to not accidentally dox myself. Believe this is a creative writing exercise, so I don't embarrass myself. For real. No, I didn't actually throw up. I was in the middle of a panic attack. Private browsing. Tabs were open to the websites with clothing and objects, another tab was signed into Google Photos. When I exited the Google Photo tab to look at the websites with clothing and came back, it was already signed out and I couldn't get back in. A lot of the clothing I recognized wasn't because I remembered my ex wearing them. There were more recent pictures of her in the file wearing them, and I remember the day Bailey bought the water bottle that also happened to be in the folder. The hair. Bailey and my ex are the same race and my ex wore braids in a particular way. Not so particular that it's exclusive to my ex, because Bailey has also worn different braids, but seeing pictures of her made me put two and two together. Is there any way Bailey could have gotten with me in an attempt to get to my ex? Was Bailey possibly obsessed with my ex before she met me? Probably not, because Bailey grew up here and my ex originally moved here for university. And while you can drive across the border, it's not that easy and I don't think Bailey was going back and forth to stalk her in person. Also, the reasons why my ex and I broke up have nothing to do with Bailey and she could not have had any involvement. On to the actual update. The next day when I had calmed down I called several social workers and therapists. I was planning to confront her there. Unfortunately, the only places that take our insurance did not have an opening for another couple weeks. So despite what a lot of you think, I've known my wife for nearly a decade and even while I was confused and upset and doubting things, I didn't think she'd be a danger to me. We took the baby to grandma's and I asked her to go for a walk with me. I did not beat around the bush and straight up told her I found the folder. Her face got very red and she was frozen, but also tried to play dumb at first. I was persistent and she started crying and begged me not to leave her. This is what I uncovered. Bailey first started looking up my ex out of curiosity. To keep tabs, I guess? But over time it became more pathological. It's like she got addicted to it, but she also wanted to please me. Okay, maybe I talked about my ex a lot more than I thought, and Bailey wanted to emulate the good parts. She told me she really doesn't know who she is, and my ex's image was something she latched onto because she had me first. Finding information about her became a game. Finding the clothing and objects became a game, by searching things like, blue water bottle green stripe, until the couple compared the product to a photo and found the exact one. The reason why I couldn't find the post wasn't because I had blocked my ex, but because my ex had made a new Facebook under a different name. Bailey found her profile by searching up a family member. She made fake social media and added enough mutual friends until she could see my ex's posts, and until her private Instagram accepted her. She weaseled her way into her exercise Facebook group, where the videos were posted, and searched her school on a yearbook website to find the yearbook pictures. Over time she just collected the images and would get excited to find something new, despite the fact that my ex is extremely private on social media. The folder had originally been called Hex the Ex. In case I discovered it, she was going to make the excuse of saving the pictures to put a hex on her. When she made a burner Google account, she deleted the old folder and named the new one XX. Then she got sloppy and comfortable, and that's right around the time I just happened to open the work tablet. We took a break. It was a while. We made it to couples counseling, and Bailey and I also began seeing separate therapists. She still has not had an assessment with a psychiatrist, but it's on the list. She promised to stop and deleted the album in front of me. Slowly certain clothing items began to disappear from the closet. I still do not entirely trust her, and that is for me to work on. I'm afraid she has another secret account somewhere, like a backup. The physical mimicking is actually stopping though, including the hair change. We're still not okay. I want us to be okay, and it's okay if that takes time. If we end up not being okay, then that's something I have to deal with. What I do know is that my wife is incredibly insecure, probably mentally ill, and is misled. I don't really want to walk away from that. Although this probably isn't the most exciting update, I appreciate the private messages I just couldn't get back to, Reddit cares, and links to resources. I'm not sure how I feel about social media, YouTube and TikTok picking up on my story though. That's wild. Until next time, if I ever give another update, I hope it's a good one. Relevant comments. Biscuit Brown, the outcome does not look positive. Why stay in a one-sided relationship? At least put a plan together that runs concurrently so you're prepared should it not work out. Seek legal advice, prepare evidence, and don't do anything stupid. At least then you will be in a better place, either way. OP, a plan is something I'm still having trouble coming up with. And it's been a couple months. I think I'm afraid to make a plan. Does that make sense? I've realized that I have lost all respect for my husband's willful ignorance, and it may damage my marriage. I, 33, and my husband, 37, were having a discussion about politics and we got onto the topic of our daughter, 7, which led to me expressing my fears about her rights and bodily autonomy. For context, my husband votes Republican and I have always considered myself independent but recently have been shifting very far away from my younger, carefree attitude toward politics. I love him very much and I know for a fact that he loves me, but I have started finding his opinions naive and lacking depth. He is a very good man though and has in the past changed his mind on several things when confronted with them. Further context, my cousin lives in a strict anti-abortion state and almost died a few years ago when the doctors waited until she was actively dying of sepsis before they decided it was okay to remove the dead baby from her body even though it had been dead for weeks beforehand. So needless to say I had a wake-up call and sharpened up my principles until they are very shiny and pointy. Last night when we were talking about abortion rights being healthcare, I lost my composure out of sheer terror about the possibility of a similar disaster with my cousin happening to our daughter and how I struggle to understand how he doesn't see the problem with his party and that in fact I think he is being willfully ignorant to the danger I and my daughter face in favor of his idea about making economics work for our family. I also said that if our daughter dies due to something preventable, like the ability to get a timely and much needed abortion, or gets shot to death in school, that I would let my own mother rot in a nursing home. She votes R2. And I'd never be able to look him in the face again, which would basically be me disappearing and divorcing him. I was crying and upset and explaining how scared I was, and he asked me in a very hurt manner if I'd actually abandon him like that. I am truthful to a fault and said that I would, perhaps out of a sense of illogical grief and betrayal, because I'd know my concerns were not taken seriously and that they had abandoned common sense and did nothing to attempt preventing a very real consequence of voting away mine and my daughter's right to health care. I equated it to a slow-motion car wreck with our daughter in mortal danger and him just watching it happen because it doesn't involve his own body. I know he needs to hear it. But I think I was too raw and open about it to steer the conversation in a healthy way, and I have a very blunt manner. I apologized this morning for saying that I'd leave him, even though I knew I would, and he tentatively accepted it. And I said we'd talk about things later when I can articulate things in a healthier way. But I'm at a loss as to how to make it known how deadly serious this is to me and not make him feel like I'd abandon our marriage over just any sensitive topic. I do not need people telling me to leave him. I don't think I know how to make it any more digestible and be clear without going nuclear over something that has not happened, as our daughter is too young to suffer that yet. The rub is that I am the person who is changing the dynamic of our relationship, and I'm beginning to understand how politics breaks up families. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Ask him to name scenarios that he would accept the premature death of his daughter. Ask him to name what life-saving healthcare he would be willing to deny for his daughter based on principles. If he can't name any, ask him why is abortion different. Use your cousin's story as a hypothetical for your daughter, but be as graphic with it as you can be. But in all honesty, if you must labor so much to convince him to care about yours and your daughter's health and well-being, then this should also serve as a wake-up call to you. And if I were you, I'd take back your apology. You meant what you said and only apologized to comfort him. I say let him be uncomfortable. Why are you so concerned with the bluntness of your words and not concerned about how quick he is to dismiss you? Comment 2. I'm the daughter of a Republican dad and liberal mom. I'm honestly not sure why they are still together, and think it is because they are older and retired. Luckily, I live in a liberal state that doesn't take away human rights, so I think it allows my mom not to think about it as much. It's been since Trump that I've really seen the division between them. I don't really have any advice to give you, but the perspective from a daughter in a similar type of situation. I love my dad, but I don't have a lot of respect for him because I don't think he actually understands what's going on. It hurts as a daughter to know my dad votes for a party that is actively doing bad to a lot of human rights mainly because he believes in the economics of Republicans. I also hate having to be around my parents in the evening, especially if they are watching the news. My mom definitely holds frustration for my dad and takes it out by saying mean things to him. And I feel like my dad doesn't take it seriously, because I don't think he actually understands how scary this is for certain people. I wish my parents would do therapy together. And honestly, you guys should probably do therapy together if you actually want to make your marriage work without resentment growing. Comment 3. The worst part is all these men talk about the economics of being a Republican, when all the data shows time and time again that those economics are absolutely horrible for 99.9% of us. They literally will cause harm to their families and others because they believe lies and don't want to hear otherwise. Comment 4. I understand why you don't want advice to leave him, but you may have to accept that as your reality simply because your morals, values, and ethics are no longer compatible. But of course, do everything you can to try to reach him. Obviously, deep down, you know him and know he has the potential. I went through this with my own husband years ago. And I wasn't nice about it. It was pretty much a deal breaker for me then, and now, and he was too busy being smugly libertarian on every other issue, so I had nothing to lose. That said, once he extracted his head from his rectum, I've been happy to explain things from my perspective as long as he's willing to actually listen. He's not perfect, but he gets a lot that men generally don't or take for granted. I do know that one of my big points was that his views meant I couldn't trust him. Women's reproductive rights sure don't affect men directly, but by not caring about the issue because they care about the women in their life, they are sending a clear message that women are interchangeable appliances. He either cares about the things that are important to you or he doesn't actually care about you. He can't claim to love and respect you and want a future with you if he's voting against your basic interests. That is hurtful for you, but you are allowing him to center his feelings hurt because you threatened to divorce him someday. He's hurting you now, but he wants to focus on his potential future pain that would be a direct consequence of his behavior now. Let that sink in. He is telling you exactly where you stand with him in multiple ways. Further, he's deluded if he thinks voting for Trump Republicans is going to actually be good for his finances. Maybe in the short term. The reality is that any gains he makes will be offset by the tax overhaul and tariff system. If your wealth is dependent on your income in any significant way, Trump winning would put your income at risk as women are forced out of the workplace and into a housewife role. If your income depends on either of you working overtime, Trump is giving employers a way to deny overtime premiums through creative scheduling. A lot of tax deductions and credits that primarily benefit low and middle class families are being eliminated while those that benefit the wealthiest are left intact or strengthened. We've already had a preview of his roided out trickle-down economy from his first term. Your husband is being incredibly short-sighted. Comment 5. I'm not sure what you are trying to achieve with this post. You say you don't need people telling you to leave him. However, the harsh reality is, in this situation, that is your present and your future, as long as you stick with Republican men. He is not a very good man when he puts your daughter's and every other woman's life at risk by voting for people who want nothing but destruction and power. That doesn't change, no matter how much you gaslight yourself that you can somehow fix him, or see reason. Sorry to be so blunt about it. Comment 6. This. If a man is a Republican, if he plans on voting for the GOP candidate, even if Trump keels over tomorrow and is replaced by someone who's less openly insane, if he is willfully ignorant, he is not a good man. Full stop. He can help old ladies cross the street and volunteer at a soup kitchen as a hobby, but he's still not a good man because he does not actually care about women. OP, you think you can fix your partner? You cannot. Nobody can fix another person. You can't be the person who is changing the dynamic of the relationship when you're not the bad actor. You should not have to explain why rolling back women's rights is fucked up to get someone to see that. He already knows and does not care. Update. We had a serious discussion. I went into more detail about my concerns and fears and it was intense. I was much better at presenting the case. I gave him several hypotheticals that involved a particularly gruesome set of circumstances involving his balls. I won't bore you with the nitty-gritty, but the gist was to shift his perspective. I told him to seriously consider carrying a tiny fetus in his ballsack and the fact that the risks were things like exploding balls, sepsis, etc., and the myriad of ways he could end up dead, permanently physically injured and disfigured, or unable to produce a fetus in the future if he didn't have the option of removing the fetus from his balls. I asked him if he would even want to take the risk and he agreed that he'd be very likely to remove it unless he was ready for those risks. I asked him why in the world would I be justified in telling him he has to carry it no matter what and it might only be removed after it starts to explode out of his ballsack or his organs start shutting down. Once he seemed to start grasping the enormity of what abortion encompasses and seeing why it's very important to not let unknown people control what options you have with no medical reason. I told him I lost a bit of respect for willful ignorance, and that I can tell he avoided thinking about it. He knows in some way that it says something about his character. And I resented having to even give him a hypothetical in the first place, and that if he cares for me and our daughter that he should automatically actively be using his empathy skills every day. I explained how I have demonstrated the capacity to care about and evaluate gender issues he's brought to my attention in the past. That was a difficult part of the conversation. I also told him that I do not trust him to always make good decisions for us and that I feel alone in shouldering those responsibilities. He listened and let me talk a lot. He asked if I was going to leave him and he was clearly nervous and bracing for the worst. I told him I'm not taking drastic steps like that, but I certainly will when it comes to keeping our daughter healthy and safe. I also started to say something about how I know I would lie to him in a heartbeat in a situation where our daughter needed an abortion or medical care, and he interrupted me to say, "You wouldn't have to lie because I'll be driving the car or buying the plane tickets and we will all go anywhere we need to." Y'all, I burst into tears. We ended the conversation and he said I laid a lot on him and he needed a break, but said he had things to think about. I didn't push any more politics, but I think I feel like my trust has been slightly restored. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I think he realizes that he's wading in dark and dangerous waters when it comes to our futures. Relevant comments. Comment 1. All of this reminds me so much of that scene in the show The Handmaid's Tale where June finds out that she's not allowed to access her bank account anymore and that her husband has to sign something for her to get birth control pills, and her husband dismisses her concerns, basically saying, "That's okay. I'll take care of you. No big deal, it's fine." It's easy to dismiss a concern when that concern doesn't seem to affect you directly. And the problem is that no matter what we say, no matter what example we give, some people will always have a degree of removal from an issue that can affect their understanding and their empathy. My own husband is empathetic and caring. But he doesn't understand why I, someone staring down the barrel of menopause, is so angry about abortion access restrictions. He doesn't understand why I, a woman in a loving marriage that doesn't look likely to end anytime soon, is upset about the end of no-fault divorce. Or why I, as someone with no connection to prison, is upset about our horribly inequitable carceral system. And he will say he understands my objections, but then he's like, why bother wasting energy getting upset about it? I don't know how to get across to him that just because it doesn't apply to me or us right now doesn't mean it won't later. I also don't know how to get across to him that it's very difficult to see attacks on our ability to get a divorce or access an abortion as a direct slap against me as a woman. If someone punches someone else like me in the face while staring me directly in the eye to show me that they would be doing it to me if they could, that's very upsetting. But they aren't looking him in the eye, so he doesn't see it that way. Comment 2. I admire the heck out of you for having this huge conversation with your husband. Thank you for making the case for all of us. And thanks for sharing with us. I hope your example can help others who need to have serious discussions like this with people in their lives. Comment 3. I'm glad you have this talk and that he is starting to reconsider his decisions. But I hope you are very clear with him that this isn't about him setting aside his views for the special case of you and his daughter. Other women are entitled to the same respect and autonomy that he wants for his daughter. If his position is that he will pack the bags and buy the tickets for y'all, but he will nonetheless continue to vote for all other women to be oppressed, he's not a good man. OP, we talked about the women getting turned away from emergency rooms across the country because they were having pregnancy complications for babies they likely wanted to keep, and it was like I could see a gear start cranking in his head. Total silence. Like he'd never considered that a lot of women who seek emergency abortions actually wanted their babies. Comment 4. My husband and I had this discussion before our first was born. This was before Roe v. Wade was overturned, but the writing was on the wall that it might go. We live in a very HCOL city for my job, but things weren't going well, and we were debating moving. I told him that as long as kids were on the table, moving to a red state was out of the question. I refused to move to a place where I would not be able to get access to care that I needed and end up dead just because we were trying to have a child. My husband brushed it off. One of his close family members is one of the most prominent OBGYNs in the country. He said that, when the worst came to worst, she would help us out. But I said, how exactly? Imagine I'm suffering from sepsis and about to die and the hospital I'm in literally will not perform an abortion. What exactly will she do? And he stopped in his tracks. That ended the discussion right there. My husband had simply never had to consider it before. At the time, we weren't seriously thinking about kids, so he hadn't really thought it through. In any case, in a few short years, Roe v. Wade was overturned, and I ended up pregnant with our first child. I'm currently pregnant with our second. We still have regular discussions about potentially moving. Never once subsequently has he ever considered a red state. Comment 5. So glad he finally understood the reason why we need to vote the way we do to protect our bodies. But is he going to back up what he says he now understands by voting the opposite of what he's done before? Comment 6. I hate that many men only recognize women's bodily autonomy when they become fathers. I hope you really talk to him about voting Republican this year, otherwise this whole thing is really moot. Comment 7. I'm glad he understood, but he still votes Republican. The Democratic Party is still right-wing. No, they are not leftist unless you're talking about the progressives, but your husband deliberately chose to vote for the more racist, ableist, sexist, bigoted in every way party. The only reason you had this discussion is because it affects you and your daughter on the basis of gender and sex. I'm not going to tell you to get a divorce, but you should probably take a good look at your own morals and principles if you still think it's okay for him to vote the way he does. Especially given everything that has happened since 2016. Editor's note. OP seems satisfied with her discussion with her husband, whether you disagree or not, so is unlikely to update. Therefore, I have marked this conclusion. Am I the asshole for returning to my career to escape the overwhelming responsibility of caring for my husband's autistic niece? My husband, 30M, became the legal guardian to his sister's daughter, 17F, 2 months ago. She lost her single mom last year. My in-laws took her in, but they were too old. That was when my husband became her legal guardian despite my concerns. He told me that he would take care of her completely. We got married a year ago after 15 years of dating. I had a very successful career in a very physically and mentally demanding field. I had to travel a lot. We wanted to start a family and I agreed to be a stay-at-home mom. I quit my job a few months into the marriage when I got pregnant. Sadly, I had a miscarriage. Then his sister died and everything is on hold. In the meantime, I took a part-time job in a related field which allows remote work so that I am not bored out of my mind. My SIL was a nurse. She quit her job to take care of her daughter full-time. Her daughter has a variety of issues including nonverbal autism, a series of development disorders like dyslexia and severe sensory issues. My husband says that he does most of the work. But he doesn't. Since I am working from home part-time, most of the caretaking falls to me. She gets angry and has meltdowns all the time. She doesn't like the food I make and most of the time she ends up throwing food at the floor or at me. I am at my wit's end and it is just so emotionally exhausting. Around December 15th, my husband was working late and asked me to take care of dinner. She is very picky about food. The slightest change in texture or taste from what she is used to can cause a meltdown. She threw the plate at my feet and I ended up bleeding. At that point, I called my husband and asked him to be home ASAP. He said he wouldn't be able to. I went up to my room and told him I'm not dealing with this anymore. He came hours later and she was still crying. He was absolutely furious at me. He called him heartless and irresponsible. I told him I've had enough of both of their ungrateful behavior and told him that I'm going to my mom's and I wouldn't be back until New Year's. He panicked and tried to apologize, but I left. He called me every day asking me to come back. I finally came back and he told me that my stunt had forced him to all available leaves to stay home with her. He told me that he was glad I was back. I told him that I contacted my former company and got my old job back and it starts next Monday. It is in office and requires a lot of travel. He asked me who was supposed to stay at home as she cannot be left alone, he has no more leaves and full-time caretakers are too expensive. I told him he promised to take care of everything when he became her guardian and that it was his problem. As you can guess, My family supports me and his family thinks I am being extremely selfish. So I'm asking for judgment from impartial strangers. AITA in this situation. Update. Lot of people were messaging me for an update. So, here goes. I wish I could say things got better. My husband took a few days off to interview special needs nanny caretakers. He ended up finding a good and experienced person to take on the job. He hired her for 6 weekdays. One day, she ended up saying she cannot make it for a couple of days due to an emergency. My husband had a meeting he couldn't miss and asked me to look after his niece for the day. I refused and he took my car keys while I was getting ready and left before I noticed so that I could not go to work. I grew up with a narcissistic gaslighting father who did stuff like this all the time. I told him to come back in 1 hour or I will call CPS and once they get there, I will call a cab and get to work. He ended up driving back and this turned into a big fight and I told him that if he does it again, I will walk out and never look back. He apologized and said that he was just desperate. The worst happened 2 weeks ago. I needed to travel for a couple of weeks for work and I could not find my passport. I am a very organized person and I knew that I did not misplace it. I ended up calling the non-emergency helpline. They ransacked the house and found the passports hidden in his gym bag. It is a crime to steal passports and they asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said no. Another fight. He told me that he needed me at home that weekend due to a social welfare visit and he knew that I would not stay even if he had asked me. I kicked them both out of my house and I told him I would call the police if he came near me again. My house is a premarital asset, thank God for that. I told him that I would be filing for divorce. The welfare visit turned into shit as neither of them were living there when the worker showed up and the social worker also knew about the recent call to the non-emergency helpline. So, all in all, she was not impressed with our bullshit. He came by 2 days ago. He told me that ended up moving in with his parents. They own and live in a small 2-bedroom apartment. That doesn't qualify according to welfare norms. He ended up asking me for another chance. He asked if I would consider letting him and niece stay until they figured it out or she would have to go to state's care. He told me that there is no way he can afford rent and a carer and begged me. I told him that I could never forgive what he did. He knew my past with my father and he still went ahead and did it. He suggested they could move in and we can work on this at couples counseling. I told him that I could never trust him again and that it was over. He asked me if he could get his parents to take in the niece or even relinquished her care to the state, if I would give him another chance. I think months' worth of anger burst that day. I told him that even though it may appear as if the problem between us is niece, it was actually him. He didn't ask me before taking her in. He did nothing to help. He waved my concerns away whenever I felt burnt out. He took on a responsibility without consulting me and dumped everything on me. He chose to take my keys. He chose to hide my passport. I told him things may have been different. Him, my niece and I may have adapted and become a family if he hadn't made the wrong choice, at my expense, at every turn. I told him to get out of my house, it was over and I never want to see any of them ever again. I still don't know if what I'm doing is right or wrong. I know people wanted some sort of happy ending, but it is what it is. I still have not started the divorce proceedings yet, but I will soon. For now, I am taking a break as it has been a very emotional and draining couple of weeks.
AITA for severely punishing my son after he pulled a cruel prank on an autistic girl at his high school prom, resulting in family conflict. I am a 48-year-old woman with a 19-year-old son named Jack and an 18-year-old daughter named Alyssa. I am married to Tom, who is Alyssa's father, but Jack's father is my ex-husband Dan, who is also 48. Dan and I had a bitter custody battle, and he now lives in New York while we reside in Texas. Throughout the years, Dan, a very successful lawyer, has unsuccessfully tried to convince Jack to live with him. Jack is quite popular at school and is on the wrestling team. His teammates devised a cruel prank where they encouraged Jack to ask a girl with severe autism, who had a crush on him, to the prom as a joke. The plan was for him to attend wearing a gorilla suit. Initially, Jack refused, but the team raised over $800 to persuade him, even paying for the gorilla suit. Jack eventually agreed, which was completely out of character for him. After the prom, I was browsing Instagram and noticed pictures of Jack in the gorilla suit. I was surprised he didn't take his girlfriend Jess and, after reading the comments, discovered the truth behind the prank. My fury was indescribable. I woke Jack up immediately and yelled at him until I lost my voice. Tom joined in once he learned what happened. Tom and Jack have never had a good relationship and I suspect Dan may have influenced this. During the confrontation, Jack told Tom to fuck off, I'm talking to my mother. As a result, we confiscated all of Jack's electronics and his phone. We had bought a car for his graduation present, but due to his prank and disrespect towards Tom, we gave it to Alyssa instead. We also made Jack give us the $800 plus raised for the prank, which we then gave to his date and forced him to write a letter of apology. Jack was grounded for a month, and we canceled his 18th birthday party. When Jack's birthday arrived, there was an unexpected knock at the door. It was Dan, carrying suitcases. Tom confronted him, saying, "What is this? The custody agreement states you don't get him on this birthday." Ignoring Tom, Dan looked directly at Jack and said, "Hey kid, I'm here for the jailbreak." He then pointed to a Mustang and added, "Hope you like Fords, you can practice driving your new car on a road trip back to New York. Let's take a detour to New Orleans." Both of them were laughing, high-fiving and backslapping, completely ignoring us as we tried to intervene. The only time Dan acknowledged me was with a cold, icy look as he said, "Checkmate." Jack yelled, "Fuck off, Tom," as they drove away. Since then, Jack has cut off all contact with me. He communicates a bit with Alyssa, and from the little she shares, it seems he's doing well. Dan is treating him lavishly, taking him to steakhouses, Yankees games, and even giving him cash outright. It's been almost a year and I'm going out of my mind thinking I've lost my son. So am I the A. Edit. I realize there might be some confusion about whether Alyssa is my biological daughter or stepdaughter. She is my stepdaughter. However, we have such a close mother-daughter relationship that it doesn't even occur to me to call her my stepdaughter. Unfortunately, Jack never warmed to Tom in the same way. Note from me. Edit. People have pointed out that I should have provided more context regarding OP's comments. Initially, I didn't think it was necessary, but it has become clear that was a mistake. While I can't remake this thread, I can add what I feel are relevant comments. On the thought process behind the punishment, Jack has generally been a good kid and hasn't been in much trouble. He used to get into fights, but that stopped a few years ago. Typically, grounding him and assigning extra chores were enough to address any issues. Recently, his punishments have been minor, like being grounded for a weekend if he blew his curfew badly. For example, being home at 12:45 instead of 11 o'clock. I didn't have a fully formed plan for the discipline regarding the prank alone since it all happened so quickly. For me, the main issue was the prank, though Jack telling Tom to fuck off mattered too, but it was a lesser concern. For Tom, however, it was a bigger issue, for obvious reasons. On Dan, OP's ex-husband, and his motivation. There is some truth here. I wasn't very kind to Dan when our marriage ended and could have handled the custody matters more fairly during the divorce, which created a lot of animosity from Dan. While I'd like to think that Dan will eventually tire of throwing money at Jack, I can't ignore that Dan does treat Jack well and isn't likely to run out of money anytime soon. Having spent every day with Dan for many years, I know him very well. He is an extremely calculating man. His exact thought process was to see the perfect opportunity to take his son back after feeling wronged by the divorce process and then hit with everything he had. It worked. Dan always plays the long game, and I am sure he will continue to do so to maintain the current situation. More on Dan. Although I would love to portray Dan negatively and there are many criticisms I could make about him, he genuinely loves Jack and has sought custody for a long time. If his actions were merely about winning, I don't think he would have been so ruthless. He sincerely believes that I took his son from him. On the extent of the punishment and Jack's relationship with Tom, stepfather. Regarding Tom, my son never respected him as an authority figure. Even as a young child, if Tom asked him to do something, Jack would retort that Tom was just a rude guest in our home. While I can't prove it, I suspect Dan played a role in this. How else would Jack know that the house was bought with my divorce money and that Tom had no financial contribution? It's interesting you mentioned Jack calling Dan with his side of the story. I have no idea how he managed that, considering I had his phone locked away for 2 weeks when this occurred. I suspect his girlfriend Jess might have been involved, even though he was barred from seeing her. Part of the reason I believe this arrangement works so well for her is that she is attending New York University, and Dan somehow managed to get Jack into Temple University in Philly. They alternate weekends between New York and Philadelphia. Dan's Instagram post from last week showed the three of them dining together at Peter Luger's. Regarding financial issues and child support, I feel incredibly foolish. I should have seen this coming from Dan. He has been waiting for years for an opportunity like this, and I provided him with the perfect scenario. I admit I didn't treat Dan well towards the end of our marriage, though I never cheated on him. But since then, he has harbored a deep resentment towards me. Now that Jack no longer lives with me, the child support payments have ceased. We divorced in New York, where child support continues until the child is 21. I'm worried about how I'll manage to pay next month's mortgage without those payments. Dan earns a significant income, so the child support was a substantial amount. Additionally, Dan can now pursue child support for me, and my lawyer has informed me that he has already filed the necessary paperwork. More on the child support situation. Tom is on disability. I knew there would be financial challenges when Jack aged out of child support in 3 years, but I hoped Tom would be back at work by then. Regarding Tom and Jack's strained relationship, I tried to introduce Tom gradually, and initially, things seemed fine. Although their interactions were never warm, they were at least civil. However, tensions escalated when Tom moved in with us. He had an accident at work and fell behind on bills, prompting an earlier cohabitation than we had planned. By that time, Jack had known Tom for a year. The issues began with minor requests, like Tom asking Jack to clean his room, put away his dishes, or mow the lawn. Jack simply refused to comply. I noticed that after every weekend Jack spent with Dan, his behavior towards Tom worsened. I vividly recall overhearing Jack, a few years ago, refer to Tom as my pet loser, during a phone call, a phrase I knew Dan had used about others before. When Jack turned 16, there was an incident where Tom, suffering from back pain, asked Jack to warm up some leftovers. Jack, engrossed in a game, rudely told Tom to do it himself. Tom responded by unplugging Jack's Xbox, leading Jack to exclaim, "This guy stays here for free, eats free food, and now thinks he has a butler. This isn't a hotel, Tom. You can't afford one." On another occasion, when Tom told Jack to mow the lawn, Jack retorted, "Don't tell me to mow the lawn in my own house. You mow the lawn and make me a sandwich when you're done." Jack's behavior is notably different from others. He's generally kind, quick-witted, and gracious. However, his attitude towards Tom mirrors his father's demeanor. Jack is charming and smooth with people he likes, but if he dislikes someone, he truly detests them. He clearly harbors a deep hatred for Tom. Elaborating on their relationship, the end of my marriage to Dan was far from amicable. I acknowledge my role in the contentious divorce, and the animosity only intensified once Tom came into the picture. One incident particularly exacerbated the tension. Tom made a joke on Facebook about wishing corporal punishment would return to schools. Dan reacted furiously, immediately flying from New York to our home, where he made numerous accusations and threats against Tom. Tom had to lock himself in the bathroom and escape through the window, fearing Dan's potential violence. This led to 2 years of litigation, where I had to prove that Tom had never and would never physically harm Jack. Meanwhile, Jack frequently taunted Tom, asserting that he had his father's permission to defend himself if Tom ever tried to discipline him. Given Jack's status as a 6'2" wrestling champion and MMA enthusiast, and Tom being a 50-year-old man with a bad back, the power dynamics were clear. If Tom ever laid a hand on Jack, I would ensure he faced jail time. However, I suspect that any physical altercation would first land Tom in the trauma ward. I am unfortunately well versed in how child support works. The household income is calculated and negotiated, especially when it exceeds a certain threshold. The total amount is then divided based on relative income. Although I earn a decent income, it's nowhere near what Dan makes. Before COVID, I was earning more. At the time of our divorce, I secured a favorable household income split, which benefited me since Dan had to pay me. Now, however, I have to pay Dan my share of that high amount. This situation has resulted in a double burden for me, losing the child support checks I was receiving and now having to write substantial checks to Dan. Additional insights on their relationship: there is a noticeable cultural clash between Jack and Tom. Tom, an old-fashioned Texan, believes that children should obey their elders and contribute to household chores. On the other hand, Jack, having grown up in Manhattan, has different expectations. Tom has significantly toned down his usual approach to parenting, understanding the existing tension. He believes that children should listen to adults and help around the house, but realizes his typical methods won't work here. I've made it clear to Tom that if he can't create a harmonious environment with my son, our marriage might not survive. Since then, Tom has largely refrained from taking on any parental role, though he occasionally tells Jack to do something, which often leads to a negative reaction from Jack. Jack's acknowledgement of his wrongdoing but feeling the punishment was excessive. Thank you for your input. Jack has blocked my number, but he still communicates with Alyssa since their relationship remains amicable. Alyssa even offered to return the car to Jack to make peace. He declined, saying he has a better car now and holds no ill will towards her. For some time Jack told Alyssa he would never forgive me. While he acknowledges his mistake, he believes the punishment was too severe, particularly losing the car and being banned from seeing his girlfriend for a month. Recently, Alyssa mentioned that Jack hinted at the possibility of reconciliation, but not for several years. Alyssa serves as a bit of a go-between, but I feel uncomfortable involving her in the middle of this conflict. It must be tough for her, seeing Jack as her big brother and witnessing the strained relationship between him and her father. OP on apologies and potential reconciliation. While I might not fully agree with all of this, I have indeed attempted to apologize. Despite Jack blocking my phone, I have sent emails where I apologized for giving his car to Alyssa, for yelling at him, for trying to force a relationship with Tom on him, and for taking the money. He has not responded to any of my messages. You raise a valid point about apologizing to Dan. Dan harbors a strong dislike for me. To take some accountability, the reason for our divorce stems from how poorly I treated Dan during our marriage. He resented the custody arrangement, believed the child support was excessively high for Jack's needs, and openly accused me of stealing both his money and his son. However, despite all this, the worst that could happen is Dan hanging up on me. Update: I was not permitted to post an official update, but a few of you have asked for news, so here it is. Following some advice from commenters, I reached out to Dan to see if he would help mediate between Jack and me. About a week later, Dan responded and arranged for me to meet him and Jack at a cafe in Manhattan. He booked a 6 a.m. flight for me and put me up in a questionable hotel in what might be the most dangerous neighborhood in New York City. When I arrived, I saw Dan, Jack, Jack's girlfriend Jess, and Jonathan, a friend from Dan's previous firm. I also noticed Jess was wearing an engagement ring. Jonathan informed me that Jack has a legal claim against me for stealing the $840, and until this matter is resolved, I am to contact only Jonathan and not Jack. I explained that the money was collected by Jack's friends for the prank and that I gave it to the girl. Jonathan acknowledged the circumstances but insisted that legally, it was theft and Jack has a right to claim it. I retorted that regardless of the law, Jack did not deserve that money, and they were welcome to sue me. Jack then said, "You locked me in my room like a prisoner for a month, took the car bought for me with Dad's child support money, took the money, and berated me for hours. Unless you're going to give me the car, this is the only thing you can undo. You said you wished we could have handled it better, so here is your chance." Or was that just bullshit lip service? I apologized but stood firm on my decision. Jonathan then handed me a cease and desist letter, instructing me to communicate only with him and not to contact Jack directly. After Jack and Jess left, I asked Dan if we could talk privately. I asked if he brought me there to humiliate me, and he responded that in fact, he didn't. He brought me there so I could humiliate myself. He explained that he had worked very hard to get Jack to the point where he'd be open to talking to me again if I were willing to back down a bit. But Dan knew that if I had to choose between my pride and my son, I would choose my pride, just as I did during our marriage. I asked Dan why he put us through this ordeal. He said it was because he wondered if I would ever learn to prioritize love over anger. He bet his future on the belief that I wouldn't when he divorced me, and he needed to see for himself how things turned out after all these years. I then asked if Jack was just a pawn in his game. Dan replied that if I had chosen Jack, he would be with me now, and nothing could have stopped that. But instead, my pride over a stranger was more important than learning to move on with my son. I asked him about the girl, to which he responded, "I hope she'll be a wonderful daughter to you since you lost a son for her." When I told him I didn't know the girl, he said, "Sounds like a bad trade," and left. Additionally, I found out I was not invited to Jack's wedding. After reading this update, I wanted to express my gratitude for the new information, but I'm a bit puzzled as to why you refused to return the money. Here are some earlier comments you made. If you lose your only child, nothing else really matters. I didn't understand that before. Hopefully, you never do. Regarding whether you would be willing to divorce Tom to get Jack back. If I had to, yes. Truthfully, that's kind of been falling apart anyway. And the only reason I haven't divorced him is because I don't want to lose Alyssa. I should never have touched the car. I should have just grounded him, insisted on the apology, and maybe also made him hand over the money. Losing a relationship with a child is a hell of a thing. It is like death. I hate what he did, but there is nothing worth losing a child over. I lost my son for that girl who I don't even know. My exact words were high road, low road, I don't care. Whatever wins. The irony is that now I'm sitting where he was except worse. I'd do anything for him back. Given all this, I'm struggling to understand why you weren't willing to return the $800 to Jack. Where's the disconnect? If you're genuinely ready to do whatever it takes, why didn't you return the money? Her response. I was so angry. I am still so angry. He was sitting there, as smug as can be, with his little girlfriend, my ex, and my ex's best friend acting as his lawyer. At that moment I just couldn't bring myself to do it. The entire situation was designed to humiliate me. They put me in a terrible hotel, made me travel all over New York City, then showed up laughing and backslapping. The lawyer informed me I couldn't speak to my own son unless I paid $800. I just don't know what to do anymore. Dan reversed the polarity on the child support, and I'm now a few months behind on the mortgage, and the hole gets deeper. I've listed my house for sale. I'm at my wit's end.